So, Jesse, we're really honored to have you come to the disinformation offices here in New York.
Thank you.
The last time we met was at the Russian Tea Room, uptown. You're downtown this time.
I was there again this trip, too.
Okay. And when we spoke, you indicated that you weren't that interested in politics anymore, and running for office anymore.
Mm-hmm.
During the media tour to promote your new book, 63 Documents the Government Doesn't Want You to Read, you've been talking about a possible change to that, and that you'd consider running for president on a Ron Paul ticket. And I just want to give a shout out to a couple of our Facebook friends who we asked them if they had any questions. So Tim Bowen says, if we beg really, really hard, will you run as Ron Paul's vice? And David Sidenio says, can he please run for president, with a lot of exclamation marks. What prompted the change? What made you reconsider? Well,
there really isn't a change that I've reconsidered. I just made the statement, and I made that also to let the world know that, to me, there's only one candidate out there that I would support other than myself, and that would be Ron Paul. And it would still require Dr. Paul to leave the Republican Party, because I also put that in there too. I said, if he quits and runs as an independent, then, and I still left myself an out. I said I would seriously consider running with him. But of course, he would have to ask me if, you know, to do that. Maybe he has someone else in mind if he decides to run. But I just wanted it out there in basic support for Ron Paul and the positions that he takes. And if you'll look in my book, I dedicated my book to him.
Right, right. Okay, good answer.
And I did that because of what he did on WikiLeaks.
Now, in the new book, and once again, it's 63 documents the government doesn't want you to read.
Mm-hmm.
You point out that much of it resulted from Freedom of Information Act requests.
Yeah.
Now, only about 1/3 of Freedom of Information Act requests currently result in the release of any information. So given that, how easy is it to source the hidden information that you're suggesting people go and find and educate themselves with?
Well, we in the epilogue list about 20 sites that they can go to in hopes of getting more information or whatever it is, but it's difficult. I mean, when you look at the fact that last year alone, the United States government declared 16 million documents top secret. 16 million. That must be every document they do, basically. And I always argue back and say they have no right to do this to me because, first of all and foremost, I'm a taxpayer. And they take my money, and these documents are created, and the use of whatever they say they're doing is being done with my money. I have every right to know where my money's being spent when it goes into the public accord like that.
Now, that's really interesting, because I want to know, do you really think that the United States is the bad guy in the room globally? Because, you know, it's worth noting that despite the poor responsiveness of our government to Freedom of Information Act requests, most countries don't have anything similar to the Freedom of Information Act. They don't allow any public access to classified documents.
Well, maybe that's what's always made us different. Maybe that's what made us the United States of America. So why would we want to venture down the road being what every other country does? It seems we're going to their way rather than them coming to our way. And you know, the United States was always the hope of the world. The people looked to the United States for that hope. And it's disappearing. People are not looking to the United States for hope now. Many places look at the United States in fear now. Fear that if they buck the United States, they could be invaded and occupied. I don't think that's a good reputation to have for our country, and I don't think that's what our forefathers had in mind when they created this country. And you know, again, the U.S. should be the ray of hope. The U.S. should be the place that is different from everywhere else, and that's the uniqueness about us. But we seem to be going the direction of the countries that suppress information and keep all these secrets from their own people.
Right. Well, as an immigrant to the U.S., I have to agree with you. But it feeds into a question that Warner Brown asked on Facebook. Where would you go in the event that the U.S. literally becomes a total third world country and police state? He says, if you didn't want to stay, where would you migrate? New Zealand, Europe, Canada? This is his question.
Well, if I follow the lead of my friend Carlos Santana, the musician, he told me New Zealand is the nicest place in the world in his opinion, but I've already done it in a way. I don't live the full year in the United States anymore. I live half my year roughly in Mexico. And My wife and I actually are contemplating seriously. It looks like we will apply for Mexican citizenship. And that doesn't mean I'm giving up my U.S. citizenship by any stretch of the imagination. It just means I'll have dual citizenship. And that's only because it would be more convenient for us personally, because we travel back and forth so much. It would be nice to be a citizen down there. Plus, it has some benefits. If you're a citizen in Mexico, you know, there's benefits that come your way that certainly I would like to take advantage of within their system.
Understood. A couple of other questions on the political front, and then we'll move on. Sam Markham asks, would Willie Nelson be heading the DEA on a Paul Ventura ticket in 2012?
Would Willie be heading the DEA? I'll tell you what, if Paul Ventura win, we may not have any need for a DEA. So Willie could keep on singing songs and not have to worry about it, because I've never confronted it with Dr. Paul before, but I'm for legalization. To me, it's a case of like living in Mexico and seeing what the cartels are doing down there and the murders that take place down there. And it's what my mother told me before she passed on. She lived through the prohibition of alcohol in the United States, and she said that this war on drugs is identical to the prohibition of alcohol. All it does is make criminals rich and powerful. People need to understand that. When you prohibit something, it doesn't go away. It's just going to be run by criminals then. And not only that, but actual drug usage, how can they make it a crime against yourself? How can you break a law against yourself, a crime against yourself? Now, if you take drugs and go rob the bank, I don't care that you took drugs to rob the bank. You'll be prosecuted for bank robbery. I don't care what motivated you to do it or what influenced you to do it. And so to me, if someone wants to do drugs in the privacy of their own home and they don't harm anybody, that's their business. There's a great book called Ain't Nobody's Business If You Do. And that's a great book to read out there. And so that's my position on it, is that, you know, we have far too much. And also, I think one of the reasons we continue to prohibit, people keep demanding for the privatization of government here now. Make it smaller, privatize it. Well, that's good in a way, but it can also be bad. And here's how it's bad. The government is not a profit-making business. Once you privatize something, well, then it's going to be a for-profit business. And what we're doing in this country, we're privatizing all of our prisons. Well, then it's inherent to have a lot of prisoners so that the business can be profitable. If it's being run by a corporation, corporations strictly bottom line profit. So therefore they got to have a lot of prisoners and a lot of people in prison to make that prison profitable. So there's a case where I don't support the privatization of prisons. Because again, to me, prisons should not be profit-making structures or buildings or entities.
The activities of the Koch brothers are being exposed thanks to the likes of Robert Greenwald. There's a Koch brothers document in one of the 63 documents that was sourced, and they're against big government. What's your opinion on regulation to protect against corporate interests like the Kochs when they run amok, versus less government, you know, smaller government, which is, I think, something that you're also interested
sure.
in. So how do we resolve that conflict?
Well, you resolve it. Government has to be there. We saw that on Wall Street. We've now seen two extremes. We've seen communist socialists fall in Russia, right? Now we've seen pure capitalism run amok in America. And between the two, it wasn't good results. So what that tells me is you have to have a combination of both. I don't want to ever be socialist. I want capitalism. I like capitalism. I think the ability to compete is good, because pure socialism, then where's your incentive to, or communism, whichever they are, where's your incentive to achieve? But we've both seen the extremes now, the disaster on Wall Street, the disaster in the Soviet Union. So clearly it says to me you have to have a combination of both. And if you can reach that nice balance, you know, the socialism to protect the poor and things of that nature, and the capitalism for people like me that want to go out and bust butt and be successful. So it requires a combination of both.
So are you sympathetic to the Kochs at all, or do you think that they're...
Well, do they need my sympathy? I don't think they need sympathy from me. I might agree with them on certain things, sure. You know, I've never found anyone that I can't agree with something that they stand for, and I'm sure that they must have something that I would say, sure. I mean, do they support the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms? Then I'm with them. So, you know, we're going to have common ground. You know, you could, and that's what it's all about anyway in society, is reaching a common ground that everyone can more or less live with. You can't go one way the other.
Right, but when they spend their money to influence...
I understand that.
Right.
You know, that's the problem. I lovingly refer to the United States of America now as the fascist states of America. Because if you look at the bare definition, basic, primitive definition of fascism, it's when corporations team with religion and control the government.
Absolutely.
I think we're there. Everyone's hollering socialism, socialism with Barack Obama, and you don't hear a word about fascism, where we're already at.
Corporatism.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So another document in the book, and I got to tell you, this is fantastic. It's packed full of everything that we're interested in here at Disinformation. Another document relates to the leaked EPA report showing that the pesticide that I'm going to mispronounce, clothianidin, is harmful to honeybees and other insects.
Yep.
That may be a key to the vanishing bees mystery or colony collapse disorder, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Sure.
Is this a good example of needing more effective regulation of corporate activity?
Absolutely. And that's where the government dropped the ball on Wall Street. That Bush and going back, they stripped away all the regulations, they stripped away and let Wall Street run amok, and look what the end result was, the disaster we had there 2 years ago in '08. Sure, you need government in which to control and understand that certain regulations have to be held up and upholded, and that's government's job to do that.
Right, so we have this tension between needing to regulate some activity but not having too much, and that's
not having the level of government where government's telling you how to live.
Right.
You know, I don't like that either, where government comes in and tells me how to live. Like, one of the things that I'm irate over is fluoride in the water. Why do we need the government putting fluoride in the water? They say it's for our teeth. Well, can't we brush our teeth and use mouthwash? Isn't that personal responsibility? If you want to have good teeth, take care of them. Well, the fluoride isn't there for that, though. You know, if you check back, fluoride first was put into water by the Nazis. That's apparently where we learned it from. And fluoride, shockingly, is the main ingredient in Prozac. So in essence, if you're drinking fluoride water, go to the doctor and get a bottle of Prozac and you might get the same thing. And not that Prozac particularly is not a good drug with legitimate uses, it probably is, but I personally know of 2 people that were put on Prozac and within a couple months committed suicide, because Prozac works differently on different people with different genetic and personality makeups of how they'll react to it. And to put it into water, well, they did it to dumb down and get everyone docile. Apparently that's what we want here, is all of us to be docile zombies walking around, so that they, I guess they can do their dirty work and not have anyone ever question them. I guess maybe that's the reason I question so much, because without having known that, except within the last few years, ironically, all the houses I've bought and owned have been in a position where I've had my own well water. So I haven't drank Prozac water. And so maybe that's why I am like I am, where I still question stuff, because I haven't been dumbed down to zombie state, like apparently a lot of other Americans have been, I can only conclude.
Right, well, when we offered you water when you came in, I can assure you it's filtered water. Last year we released a movie called Tapped, and the producers insisted that we switched from bottled water to filtered water, and we made sure it had a fluoride filter in it.
Yep, and that's a good move, because I did a show this fall on my conspiracy theory show showing what's happening with our water and how the big conglomerate Nestle is literally going up into Michigan, and they found the loophole. It's 20% of the world's fresh water is in the Great Lakes in that region. Well, naturally, if you're going to sell bottled water like oil, you go where the oil is, you go where the water is. They found the loophole. It's illegal to take it out of the Great Lakes, but they build next to a tributary. They sink their wells down into the tributary, and they're getting what? Imagine having a business where the commodity that you sell is free. I mean, even oil you got to pay for. They get this clear water, clean water free. They bottle it up and they sell it to us more expensive than gas. Well, it used to be more expensive than gas. With the gas prices going up like they are now, it might be a tie right now between bottled water, because bottled water was usually $1 a quart, which means it's $4 a gallon. So I guess gasoline is caught up with water now.
Yeah, no, I mean, these very issues were exactly in that movie Tapped, and it's kind of scandalous, but we'll move on to other topics
Sure.
because I want to get through a lot, and
Sure.
I know your time is precious. So changing topics a little bit, you publicly championed Julian Assange in WikiLeaks. Do you think that Assange was set up in the rape charges brought against him in Sweden?
Well, from some of the information I've gotten, first of all, what he was charged with in Sweden was not against the law in England or the United States, so why would we hold him? Why would England hold him? Second of all, I learned that this new head guy in Sweden, is he a premier or whoever over there, I don't know what they call it, president, whatever he is, I heard he's very tight, and who helped get him elected was Karl Rove. Do you think that they're pushing Sweden to put him in prison because he's got messages in the goods on the Bush administration and Mr. Rove, and that might be the underlying reason why they were pushing so hard to lock him up over in Sweden, because Karl Rove has an ally there, and maybe there's something they don't want out on during the Bush administration that probably there's quite a few things out of that administration that if we knew the truth would probably cause a great uproar in this country.
Now, I'd argue that the internet has enabled the likes of Julian Assange and you, Jesse Ventura, not to mention sites like Disinformation, our site, to shine a light on bad deeds of government and corporations. In the book, you highlight the risk of a government kill switch on the internet.
It's there.
And you know, you have the Lieberman bill in here. Could it be done, or is the genie out of the bottle? Is it too late to stop the internet?
Well, if they can shut it all off, the internet's dead. I mean, if they have the ability to order all internet providers to shut down by law, how do? They break the law then and stay on the air and go to jail or whatever? I knew it was going to happen because the internet is too wild and woolly, and government wants to control everything. They don't want anything out there that they don't have some type of hold on. So, you know, them granting the president this kill switch, and I, for the life of me, can't imagine, even in a state of martial law, why would it require killing the internet? I don't know why anything would require to kill the internet. Maybe I should ask the question, for what purpose would they need to kill the internet? Do you know? Why would they need to kill the internet?
To stop people like you writing books like this?
We understand that, but I mean, from their perspective of selling it to the public, what is their excuse of selling it to the public that you'd have to kill the internet, even in the case of martial law? Are they going to say that all the bad people are on the internet and the only way to stop them is to kill the internet? So again, to keep us safe, all the good people have to suffer to get the bad people? I'm not sure. I, in my mind, can't figure out a scenario that would be good to kill the internet over.
I'd agree.
We're too entrenched in it now.
It's a real risk.
Sure. I think it's always a risk when the power to do something that is very popular with the people, and it's a form of major communication throughout the world. It's the form of major commerce throughout the world now. For having the ability to simply, at the snap of the fingers, cut all that off, yeah, I think that's very dangerous.
Right. A couple of questions from one of our Facebook fans called Mother Macabre. She says, who is responsible for punishing the financial bandits, and how can we the people make it happen? And the second question she has is, what can we do to help control our government? They're sort of interrelated questions.
What is she asking, to get the Wall Street people?
Yeah. Who is responsible for punishing the financial bandits, and how can we the people make it happen?
Well, who's responsible is Eric Holder, the Attorney General. That's his job. He's the highest law official in the land. And what can we do? I always love that question, but unfortunately, I'm only speaking to the lemmings. You get what I'm saying? The lemmings don't look left or right. They just walk right off the cliff. It's as clear, the answer to that is as clear as the nose on your face. But unfortunately, the next cliche comes in, you can't see the forest for the trees. So I'm going to clear the trees out of the way so you can see the forest. The answer to take our country back is not violent revolution, not yet. It hasn't gotten to that point yet. But the answer is very simple. Stop voting in Democrats and Republicans. Vote for anyone else. Another good thing that we could do, which is very unlikely, to start it off, they should pass and put on every election ballot, be it local, statewide, or federal, the option of none of the above. So that when you go in to vote, you can circle none of the above, which really is a vote of non-confidence in government. And imagine if, say, you're running for the Congress and you defeat your opponent, but you lose to none of the above. Wouldn't that kind of change your mode of thinking when you took the job? Saying, gee, I lost to none of the above. And so people chuckle when I say that, but it serves a purpose of it's a vote for no confidence in government. And I'm willing to bet, under today's climate, that if you did that, none of the above could very well win quite often. And that option should be there, because I think that would be a major, major wake-up call. And the other thing we should start doing is remove party designations on the ballot. It's far too easy, and they've got us in tuned like this now. If you're a conservative, you don't need to know the names. You just got to go Republican, Republican, Republican. If you're a liberal, you don't need to know the names of your candidates. Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. You think that's all not by design? Remove those names. Then you and I, it's inherent to us, we have to do our homework. Well, what does John Smith stand for? Because all you're going to see is a name now on the ballot. Simple, two little simple things like that could have such, I believe, a dynamic result in taking our government back.
Great answer.
And there's no bloodshed. There's no anything with that. Simple.
One thing that's not in the book, but that you focused on in your TV show on True TV, Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura, is HAARP. Now, Angela Marie Bird from Facebook says, since the show covered HAARP, have there been any more developments regarding the story? And I'm going to elaborate on her question a little bit. The various natural disasters we've seen around the world, and mass bird deaths and earthquakes and tsunamis and all these strange weather things that are happening. Do you think they're completely natural, or could HAARP or something else have something to do with it?
Well, I was showing clearly how HAARP can affect the weather. And you know how they get around that one? There's international treaties that say you can't do it, but the loophole is you can do it domestically. It doesn't say you can't do it inside your own country. And that's the loophole that they're thriving upon for weapons like HAARP. The better person to talk about that with is Dr. Nick Begich, who wrote the book, Angels Don't Play This HAARP. But Dr. Begich did look me right in the eye and said something very terrifying to me. He said, Governor, HAARP is the death ray. This is the death ray.
Wow.
And that's a pretty bold statement to make. This is the death ray. It can knock planes out of the air.
Now, another weird phenomenon that conspiracy theorists like to talk about, and I'm interested to see.
Wait a minute, let's add, wait, I hate that line, because the government is also a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they don't come forward with any solid evidence. They just give you a theory. They just give you a theory.
We'll talk about 9/11 a little later, hopefully, but Jim Marrs, who you know,
Sure.
one of our authors,
Sure.
Likes to say that, the government conspiracy theory about 9/11 is there were 19 terrorists who hijacked a plane, etc. That's the official conspiracy theory.
Well, here's what it is.
Definition of a conspiracy.
Yeah, here's what it is. Here's the government's theory, that 19 Islamic radicals armed with box cutters defeated our multi-billion-dollar air defense system, all while conspiring with a bearded guy in a cave in Afghanistan. People in the U.S. accepted that blindly. And yet when I bring up the fact of U.S. involvement in some way, shape, or form, oh, that inept government, they could never do anything like that and get away with it. So, in other words, they're saying to me, these 19 Islamic radicals with box cutters are better than anyone we have in the United States in pulling this op off? I beg to differ. You can't tell me that a platoon of Navy SEALs couldn't pull that off. I don't buy that. We're too good. We could pull that off. How come it is so hard to believe that the government, we would have nobody that could do the job that these supposed 19 Islamic radicals did? That insults my intelligence.
Right. Well, there you go. It's a conspiracy theory. Literally, the definition of a conspiracy. These
Sure.
guys conspired to do this act,
Yeah.
right? That's the official
That's the official
theory.
answer of 9/11.
That's right. So we'll come back to 9/11. What I was going to ask you about, and it's something that Alexander Tomasic asks, what do you think about chemtrails? And Rich Henry says, it seems chemtrails have been rampant this year. What are your feelings on chemtrails and the altering of the weather?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know. I can't give you a definitive answer on it, but I will say this, it's obvious on a lot of people's minds because everywhere I go since I started doing Conspiracy Theory, the TV show, the general public chemtrails rears its head fast. Of people saying, Governor, when are you going to do chemtrails? When are you going to do chemtrails? Well, we're not picked up yet, but things are looking positive. But I know in the world of Hollywood, you never count on anything till the check clears the bank. And so I can assure everyone pretty solidly that if we come back for a third season, there will be an episode on chemtrails.
It should be.
But then again, will it get censored like my other episode did? On are we turning into a police state on the building of these internment camps? You saw how quick the government came down on the parent company, and that got pulled, you know. And now True TV won't even acknowledge we did it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
They won't admit that the FEMA camps were even on the agenda.
No. In fact, I was told by Representative Cohn or whatever he is from Tennessee, he assured me up and down there were no FEMA camps being built anywhere. And then when I showed him the very bill that he sponsored, he was aghast. He couldn't believe it. Well, that tells me one of two things. Either they don't even know what's in their bills, which is very probable. Remember Fahrenheit?
Sure.
The movie?
Sure.
Remember when Michael Moore went into Congressman Conyers, said, Congressman, with your voting record, how could you have possibly voted for the Patriot Act? You know, something that violates the Bill of Rights like it doesn't. Remember when Conyers grabbed Michael Moore by the elbow and said, let me sit you down here, young man. There's something you need to know. We don't read any of the bills we vote on. Well, that tells me completely the control the parties have over them. They're then told by the parties, they don't have to read a bill. The party tells them whether they're going to vote yes or no on the bill.
This feeds really nicely into a question from Patty Alstead Cox, who says, I want to know if Jesse received any threats after his Illuminati episode on conspiracy theory. If he did, I bet he can't say.
No, I haven't been threatened for anything. So I can say, nobody here, I can honestly sit here, look you right in the eye, and at this point in time, no one has threatened me at all. But that in itself maybe is dangerous, because usually I fear the person that doesn't talk more than I do the one that shoots his mouth off. So maybe I am, who knows, because they're not about to give me a threat and then do it.
No,
if something bad's going to come to me, they're not going to tell you ahead of time it's going to happen.
Brian Geis asks, is his show meant to feed all the hype or actually resolve unanswered questions?
The TV show?
Yeah, the TV show.
My TV show, I believe, is naturally people need to understand we're doing entertainment. We're not doing a documentary. So, and you have to remember, true TV in the world of TV is based upon ratings. Ratings equal money. And as terrible as that capitalism is, that's what we work under. So again, we are doing entertainment. It's just a strange form of reality television in the fact that we take people who are involved or whatever they may be of the conspiracy and we make them actors like reality TV to where they act with me, and we don't need any writers because all they need to do is tell what they know. and no one can write that for them. So my show, in essence, is kind of a bit of a multiple different shows: reality television, documentary, entertainment, all rolled into one.
Got it. Now, I know that the JFK assassination was extremely important and formative in your thinking. You kick off the book talking about JFK. In fact, there's a JFK quote.
Yep.
For young people today, or young adults today, it's undoubtedly 9/11. Do you think the truth will ever come out in either instance?
Not officially. Not officially from our media. We had the confession of JFK this year by E. Howard Hunt, who told who did it. It was called The Big Event by the CIA. It received not a word in mainstream media, because I love to refer to mainstream media as like, did you see the great film Malcolm X when Denzel played Malcolm?
Sure.
And I love the part where Denzel says, "You've been bamboozled." Remember that? Mm-hmm. You've been bamboozled. I love that word. Well, that's what we've been. We've been bamboozled. And the media is not going to come back now and admit that they misled the public. They gave us Oswald all these years. They gave us the 19 hijackers and sold it down our throats. You think they're going to come back and admit, whoops, we were wrong? It ain't going to happen. So officially, you will never know truly 9/11, truly John Kennedy, or any of the others, because our mainstream media is not going to admit that they sold us a bill of goods.
Later this afternoon, Larry Silverstein is visiting this same building. This was the first building in New York that Larry Silverstein owned. You know why I'm bringing his name up. Mm-hmm. We're not interviewing him. He's here for a public TV show about his real estate ventures. Building 7, another document that's in the book. Isn't that the smoking gun, or at least one of the smoking guns?
Absolutely. I mean, NIST's own report states that it went free fall. Well, the only thing that can make a building go free fall is demolition.
Right, and Silverstein admitted, right?
Because that removes all the resistance, and therefore the building cannot. You're defying the laws of physics, and you can't do that. And when that document says the building went free fall, it's the same as them writing the building was brought down with demolition, because it's only demolition that will remove the resistance to allow a building to fall in a free fall mode. Because as we all know from physics, if a moving object hits one that's not, they're going to slow down.
And Larry Silverstein, who owned WTC7, said we pulled the building, right? Said it on TV on that day.
Yeah.
And
well, but they came up with a lot of excuses, yeah, meaning he meant something else.
Right.
You know, and of course, if you ask him, I'm sure he was by now has another definition of what he meant.
I'm going to switch gears for a second. One of the biggest disappointments for many people who voted for President Obama has been the escalation of the war in Afghanistan, and now a new Middle East war in Libya. Mm-hmm. Do you have any insight on why we're sending more armed forces to more overseas conflicts?
Yeah. Libya's got oil. Always look to, the only thing we're going to intervene in is when the big multi-conglomerates can go rape and pillage and make money. Rwanda, there was no interest. There was nothing there that could make the conglomerates or corporate world profit. Right. So there has to be a profit motive before the U.S. military comes in and intervenes. Not a human rights motive, but a profit motive. Libya's got oil, Iraq's got oil, Afghanistan has huge mineral wealth, including a vein of lithium that they claim is worth $1 trillion, or could be, which of course lithium provides the batteries for every cell phone, every computer, and soon to be electric cars.
How are we doing for time? Keep going? Okay. Let's see.
I got to go to Fox and there. And
I've got.
Make it a good one. Make it a good one.
All right. Another divisive issue today is climate change. and what causes it. And we got one of our Facebook friends, John Cates, says, do you think the global climate is a setup for a new world war? I mean, what's
not a new world war. The cap and trade, or what they've suggested to us to take care of the climate change, I believe is a setup for a single global government. Because now we're paying local taxes, you pay state taxes, you pay federal taxes. This cap and trade for global warming means you'll now pay an international tax. Well, as soon as the money starts coming in, it grows. You see, money is like water and what do you call it on a plant? I've been doing so many interviews now, but I can't think of the word anyway. But it makes it grow.
Photosynthesis.
Not photosynthesis. When you put
fertilizer.
Fertilizer. There's why I couldn't think of the word temporarily. Like I said, I've been doing so many interviews. Money is like water and fertilizer to a plant. The more money comes in, the more water and fertilizer, the bigger the plant grows. Well, if they go to this cap and trade to stop global warming, I think that's the excuse to create the global government. Now, having said that, is global warming real? Yes, it is, because we have the document in there from the United States military that says it absolutely is. So the military believes it is, but the Republicans don't. So there you got it pretty well. But again, their alternative, this cap and trade, is a farce, in my opinion. I think it's an excuse to use global warming as the mechanism to create a world government. Now, but maybe I'll throw this out. I believe in evolution. Maybe a world government, we will evolve to it. Maybe there's no hope, but we have to evolve to it because the world gets smaller and smaller because of technology. And I guess the one positive thing out of a single global government would be, as long as they were honorable, that there would be no more wars. Because there would be no government against government anymore. You would have a global entity. That part could be good. Will we see it in my lifetime? I doubt it. Yours, I doubt it. But maybe 100 years from now, there could be a single global government, and maybe it's inevitable. Maybe we evolve to that, and there's no other way out of it through our technology.
You're scaring me, and you're probably scaring all of Disinformation's viewers. I much appreciate your time.
Well, but does it not seem a bit logical that it could be, that it very well could be evolution, and it's because of technology? And there was never a day you could get on a computer and communicate with someone in China, and so the world's getting smaller because of our technology.
I understand where you're going. I hope you're wrong.
Well, and I maybe do too, but you know why I'm not worried about it? I don't see it happening in my lifetime. I'll have shuttled off this planet by the time all that starts, I think, or gets to that point. But again, it may be inevitable.
So once again,
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Why the fear of the global government so bad if they were indeed good? If you could ensure goodness out of one entity that would control the government of the world, what would be bad about that?
Does a federal government work better than a state government in this country?
No.
Would a world government work better than national governments globally?
No.
There you go.
But a world government would work better than a smaller government in stopping war.
Totalitarian regime?
Not necessarily totalitarian if they're elected. Then we may have elections, world elections. Imagine that. Just stay away from the electronic voting machines and do it by hand.
I never thought I'd hear you advocate for one world government.
I'm not advocating. No. I don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating for it. You know me, I look at facts and tell you, and I just am looking at it saying we may not have a choice. It may be out of our hands in many ways.
And it could be benign.
It could be, sure. I've always believed this. What is the best form of government? What do you think the very best form of government would be?
For the people, by the people.
No, not benevolent dictator. But the key's benevolent. Because if you're the benevolent but you got to put term limits on him, the benevolent dictator. Because the benevolent dictator, benevolent means loved, doing right. You wouldn't have to clear nothing. If you needed a bridge built, build the bridge. You need to do this, do it. dictator, you can do it that way. You don't have to clear a Congress. You don't have to vote. You don't have to go all through the rest of this rigmarole. But again, the key's benevolent, and that's what you won't get, is the benevolency. If you could magically ensure there would always be benevolency and a good guy, that's the way to go. But unfortunately, we're all humans, and we all have our negatives to us, and power and money corrupt. Power corrupts. So eventually the benevolent dictator would become corrupted probably. But if you could avoid the corruption, it's the best way to go, believe it or not.
Okay.
No, having governed. In Minnesota, I would have loved to have been able to do everything I wanted to do without having to deal with a Republican and Democrat House and Senate. Heck, I could have put in 3 light rails. I had to fight to put in 1. Right. If I were the benevolent dictator, hey, we're going to build one here, we're going to connect the 2 cities, we're going to do one over here. And that would all been good, wouldn't it?
Would have been fantastic.
I guess I'm the only one out there who ought to be benevolent dictator.
It could still happen. It could still happen. Jesse,
and remember, that's tongue-in-cheek, everyone. I've learned in politics you never dare joke. That's one of the reasons I'm out of it. I can tell jokes again. Thank you.
Okay,
appreciate
thanks
it.
Again.
Thanks.
Much appreciated.